Hello book lovers, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into the thrilling world of Stephen King. And more specifically, we're gonna talk about his short stories. Here are the collections that I read by Stephen King, and let's have a cozy chat about them. But before we begin, my sister told me that I needed a microphone, and this is what this is. Here, I hope this isn't noisy for you. So if it's distracting, well, I'm sorry. I've connected it to my phone, which seems to be recording. I have tested this mic before and it seemed to work, but I've never shot a video with it. So this is the first time and I hope it goes well. So let me know if you can hear me properly. Let me fix the lighting because it's a little bit off. Okay, without further ado, let's talk Stephen King. Stephen King is known as the master of horror, and righteously so. But I think he's just a master storyteller because everything he has written is an adventure. And I don't mean it in a way that he writes adventure, he does not. But he takes you on a journey with him. I have read 4 story collections by Stephen King, and I read them specifically in this particular order. First, I read The Night Shift, and then I read, I think, If It Bleeds. Sorry. And then I read Just After Sunset, and much recently, I think back in February or March, I read The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. These collections are filled with stories that will send shivers down your spine. It will make you ponder the unknown and sometimes even bring a tear to your eye. And I know you expect that already from stories by Stephen King, but I'm just here to reassure you. So let's start with The Night Shift, which is the first collection that I read by Stephen King. This collection is a classic and features some of the earliest works by the author. I believe this is a must-read for all horror fans out there. There's such a variety in types of stories, in writing styles, in story lengths, of course. There's such a variety that I don't even know where to start. I think I loved every single story in this collection. There is not one story that I felt was lacking or maybe lagging or whatever. But if I had to choose my favorite, okay, so there are very many good stories. There are so many good stories in this. Like Jerusalem's Lot is something that I loved, and Graveyard Shift and Night Surf. I'm just reading the titles in the order that the collection is written. I Am the Doorway. I love that story. Okay, I'll stop here. You get my point. I love them all, even The Ledge and The Man Who Loved Flowers and The Woman in the Room. Like, oh my god, like these are all like great stories, and it was very hard for me to choose one favorite, but I think it's a tie. I think it's a tie between I Am the Doorway and The Last Rung on the Ladder. I Am the Doorway was very haunting for me. I felt like I got nightmares after reading that. And The Last Rung on the Ladder was also very haunting, but in a different way. It's not that scary. It's more like something that could very easily happen in real life. And I think that's what stuck with me the most. And sometimes I still think about that. Next up, we have If It Bleeds. If It Bleeds only has 4 short stories in here. Well, I'm not sure they're considered short stories. They're more like novelettes. I'm not sure This is one of his most recent collections, if I'm not mistaken. This was published in 2015. No? Nope, 2020. I was way off. Which one was 2015? I think it was The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. Yes, okay. This was published in 2020. It's a very recent collection. I think this collection showcases King's versatility as an author, from supernatural mysteries to psychological thrillers. These stories keep you on edge. I did feel, however, out of the 4 stories, there was one, ironically, the story that has the same title with the book, If It Bleeds. This story, I think, was just a little bit off for me. I felt like I needed something more from that. I really enjoyed reading it, but I don't think it was up there with the other stories. They were all great, and again, if I had to choose a favorite, again, here there's a tie, not many stories to choose from, there are like only 4. But I think the 2 that stuck out to me were The Life of Chuck and Rat. I think I identified a lot with Rat because the protagonist is a writer, and I have a very soft spot for stories with writers, which like, you know, I'm a little biased, but The Life of Chuck kind of like stayed with me. I think about The Life of Chuck almost every day since I read this book, and I don't know how that happened. The Life of Chuck is literally the entire life story of Chuck, written in 3 acts in reverse order. So in the first act, we see the death of Chuck. In the second act, we see the middle part of his life. And then in the first, we see his childhood. So I think the thing that followed me after reading this book is the fact, you know, that Chuck swore that he's gonna live life to the fullest, and he's gonna take risks, and he's gonna be happy, you know, and he never did those things. And, you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, all those stories we hear about, you know, regretting your life and, you know, being in your deathbed and wondering if you had taken some risks, you know, earlier in life, maybe your life would have been better. I know this will sound weird, but ever since I read this story, I feel like I'm like more eager to pursue my dreams because I don't want to be like Chuck. Also, fun fact, I read somewhere online that Mike Flanagan is going to make a movie out of The Life of Chuck. I don't know if that's true, but I am so excited for this because Stephen King's my favorite author and Mike Flanagan is like my favorite director, and like those 2 together is like, and I'm so excited to see if that will happen. Just let me check it out now. I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't gonna talk about this. Okay. Mike Flanagan, filmmaker, American filmmaker. The Life of Chuck film, yes. Okay, so it is happening. It's happening. It's going to be a movie. I'm so excited for this. Okay, moving on. Number 3, Just After Sunset. This was gifted to me, I think. Okay, this one is also, this also contains some of his older stories. Published in 2009. Just like the title suggests, Just After Sunset, each story in here is like taking a twilight scroll through the darkest corners of Stephen King's mind. There were three stories that stood out to me. Like, again, I liked every single story, and I know you didn't see that coming, but there were three stories that stood out the most, which are Stationary Bike. Why did I say it like that? Stationary Bike, The Things They Left Behind, which is like so thrilling. I mean, I get shivers just by remembering it. And N, so it's spelled like this. N is, I think, my favorite story. Like, if I had to choose from the three, I would go with N. You know, the entire paranoia that follows, you know, the characters. I'm not gonna go into detail. You should read this story. Someone told me about this story when I was back in uni, and they had read it, and it haunted them, and they told me about it. And then when I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I wanna go and count the stones. Like, what I love about Stephen King, and this is true for this book, and it's true for every single story I've read that he has written, is that he places ordinary people under extraordinary circumstances. And that's, I think, what's the most captivating. You see everyday people who could be, you know, your friends, or people who could be your neighbors, or even just yourself. And they find themselves in these situations that are so unreal and so very wild. And that kind of makes it more real. And that's, I think, because if you've read at least one story by Stephen King, you know by now that he invests a lot in his characters. So you know, when you read the story, you feel like you're reading about real people. It's just amazing. Okay, finally, let's move on to the last book I read, The Bazaar of Bad Dreams. I know there are other short story collections out there, but today I'm only talking about the ones that I have read. This book, again, has a variety of stories, like everything. I don't think I have ever read one short story by Stephen King that reminds me of another short story that he has written. They're all so different. In here, you will find, again, very different themes. Monster trucks, to a person who kills other people by writing their obituary, the end of the world, and of course a guy who lives through the same life over and over again, making the same mistakes. Even though he's given the chance not to do it, he still does it, and that is very exciting and also very sad. I really tried very hard to find one story that stood out more than the rest, but it was very difficult for me because I really loved all of them, obviously. The thing is that here I tried to mark down the ones that I liked most, but I feel like, oh my god, look, that I forgot to mark like Batman and Robin have an altercation. I didn't mark that, and I love that story. I have marked like almost half of them. And I can't choose my favorite from here. Maybe from this collection. And maybe that's because I read this very recently. Maybe I need some time to move away from the stories in order for them to like sit with me. I don't know. Is like a month now a short time? Maybe I should sleep on it. I don't know. I liked the Mile 81 and the Dune and Morality and Afterlife. Under the Weather was such, you know, it's like, you know what's coming, you know the end, but you still can't stop reading. It's like an addiction. It doesn't matter that there's no twist in the story. It matters that the person, the protagonist, is so sucked into the lie that he's living that you can't stop reading. Blockade Billy, like, oh my god, that was a good twist. And even Tommy is like written like poem. It's very short. I think it's like four pages. I think it's very short. Let me find that. Oh my god, Tommy 357. Yes, it's literally 4 words and it's like a poem. This was so good also. Cookie Jar was one of, you know, the best stories, and even Drunken Fireworks, and I don't know, I love them all. So of all these 4 collections, my favorite ones were Night Shift, obviously, and the Bazaar of Bad Dreams, because I feel like I got the most out of them. But that's just me. I loved all his stories. I always love all his works. But I think like Night Shift and the Bazaar of Bad Dreams were way up there. Oh, and of course I can't wait to read his other collections. Whether you're a longtime fan of Stephen King or just new to his works, I highly recommend these collections. They are sure to entertain, thrill, and maybe give you some nightmares. So grab a cozy blanket, you know, a cup of tea or whatever, and let the master of horror take you into a journey you surely won't forget, because I feel like I can't forget any of his stories. Maybe I don't remember all the titles. For instance, I read Just After Sunset last year, and when I was preparing for this video, I couldn't remember like what the title was about. And then, you know, once I started reading, you know, in the second paragraph, I'm like, oh yeah. If you haven't read Stephen King before, I would highly recommend starting from his earliest works. So that dates back to Night Shift. If you're looking for something short, for a longer piece of art, I think Carrie is a must read. But we're here to talk about short stories. So yeah, go with Night Shift. Night Shift, I think, is a safe choice. Everyone loves Night Shift. And by everyone, I mean me. So yeah, I suppose that's it for today. I hope this mic worked. I hope you enjoyed this cozy book chats, and I'll see you next time.